They snatched the wrong girl from the party. When Konstantin found out, he aimed his gun at my skull and I expected the shot. Instead, I got an offer. Help him take down my best friend's trafficking empire, or die in this mansion tonight. Before we dive into this emotional journey, if you're enjoying these stories of unexpected love and redemption, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might just change how you see the world. Now, let's begin. The gun pressed against Isla Monroe's temple was cold enough to make her shiver, or maybe that was just the terror coursing through her veins like ice water. Either way, she had approximately 30 seconds to convince the man holding it that killing her would be the worst business decision he'd ever make. "You're making a mistake," she said, proud that her voice didn't shake much. "Everyone says that," the gunman replied, bored. His finger tightened on the trigger. "Yes, but I mean it literally. Check my ID. I'm not who you think I am." He paused. That hesitation, that single moment of doubt, was all Isla needed to know she might actually survive the next 5 minutes. The question was, did she want to? 12 hours earlier, Isla had never belonged in places like the Azure, Manhattan's most exclusive rooftop lounge where the champagne cost more than her monthly rent and the dress code actively discriminated against anyone who shopped at normal stores. But her best friend since sophomore year, Vivian Lancaster, had begged her to come celebrate her engagement to some hedge fund manager whose personality could be described as owns a boat. "Please," Vivian had pleaded over FaceTime, her perfectly highlighted hair catching the light in a way that made Isla's unwashed bun feel even sadder. "You're my oldest friend. I need someone there who knew me before the nose job." So Isla had borrowed a dress from her roommate, a sleek black number that fit well enough if she didn't breathe too deeply, and taken the subway to the Upper East Side, mentally preparing herself for an evening of fake smiles and real boredom. The Azure occupied the 42nd floor of a building that probably had its own zip code. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of Manhattan that made the city look like a jewelry box, all glittering lights and impossible promises. Inside, New York's elite clustered in groups, their laughter as carefully curated as their investment portfolios. Isla accepted a champagne flute from a passing waiter and immediately felt like an imposter. She'd spent the morning grading freshman composition essays about summer vacation. These people spent their mornings deciding which luxury car to drive to their Hamptons estate. "You came." Vivian materialized in a cloud of Chanel No. 5 and pulled Isla into a hug that was more performance than affection. "God, how long has it been?" 3 months. 4, Isla corrected, but Vivian had already moved on, dragging her toward a cluster of people who looked like they'd been ordered from a catalog titled, "Generically Attractive Rich People." "Everyone, this is Isla. We went to Columbia together. She's a teacher now, isn't that adorable?" The way Vivian said teacher made it sound like a hobby, like knitting or collecting stamps. Isla swallowed her irritation and smiled. This was friendship, apparently. Showing up to be shown off, a token of Vivian's charitable nature. For the next hour, Isla played her assigned role, the normal friend, the one who made Vivian seem grounded and relatable. She nodded through conversations about property values and vacation homes, nursing her single glass of champagne while everyone else tossed back drinks that cost more than her student loan payment. "I need air," she finally told Vivian, who waved her away distractedly, already engrossed in discussing wedding venues with her future mother-in-law. The terrace wrapped around the building's perimeter, offering multiple private alcoves for guests who wanted to admire the view or conduct business away from prying eyes. Isla found an empty corner and leaned against the railing, breathing in the cool October night. From here, the city sprawled in every direction, a labyrinth of light and shadow. Somewhere down there was her tiny apartment in Washington Heights, her stack of ungraded papers, her regular life that felt suddenly very far away. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Isla turned. A man stood a few feet away, tall, dark-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her car. He was handsome in that calculated way wealthy men often were, like he'd been designed by committee to be aesthetically pleasing. "It's something," Isla agreed, non-committal. "You're Vivian's friend." He moved closer, and something in the way he moved made Isla's instincts scream. Too smooth. Too deliberate. "I saw you arrive together." "Just leaving together, actually." Isla set down her champagne flute. "I should get back inside." "Wait." His hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Not hard, but firm enough to make his point. "I think we should talk, Miss Lancaster." Miss Lancaster. The world tilted sideways. He thought she was Vivian. "I'm not," Isla started, but he was already pulling her toward the far end of the terrace, toward the service entrance she hadn't noticed before. "Don't make a scene," he said quietly. "There are 3 of my men inside. If you scream, they start shooting, and your friend Vivian will be the first casualty. Do you understand?" Isla understood perfectly. She understood that she'd somehow walked into the wrong story, that whatever Vivian or her family had done, Isla was about to pay the price for it. They descended the service stairs in silence, his grip never loosening on her wrist. At the bottom, a black SUV waited, engine running. Another man stood beside it, the one who, 12 hours later, would press a gun to her temple. "Get in," her captor ordered. Isla considered her options. She could run, but where? Scream, and risk the massacre he'd promised. Fight against two men who clearly did this professionally. Or she could get in the car and hope that somewhere between here and wherever they were taking her, an opportunity would present itself. She got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and gun oil. Her captor slid in beside her, and the door locks clicked with a finality that made her stomach drop. The driver pulled into traffic without a word, navigating through Manhattan like he'd done this 1,000 times before. "Where are we going?" Isla asked, hating how small her voice sounded. "Somewhere we can discuss your father's business decisions without interruption." "My father's an accountant in New Jersey. His biggest business decision last year was switching to generic trash bags." The man studied her in the dim light of passing street lamps. "Your father, Miss Lancaster, is Gregory Lancaster, CEO of Lancaster Holdings. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending otherwise." Gregory Lancaster was Vivian's father, a man Isla had met exactly twice, once at graduation and once at Vivian's 21st birthday party. He'd been polite but distant both times, the kind of rich person who looked through service workers and scholarship students like they were made of glass. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Isla said carefully. "I think you should stay quiet." They drove for 40 minutes, leaving Manhattan behind. The city gave way to suburbs, then to the kind of countryside rich people pretended existed for their benefit, manicured estates hiding behind stone walls and iron gates. Finally, they turned onto a private road. The estate that appeared at its end looked like something from a movie about British aristocracy: sprawling mansion, fountain in the circular drive, probably a stable somewhere housing horses worth more than Isla's student debt. "Out," her captor ordered. Inside, the mansion was exactly as obscene as expected. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that was definitely original and definitely worth more than most people's homes. Isla was marched through hallways lined with portraits of stern-faced men, all the way to a library that could have doubled as a small bookstore. "Wait here," her captor said, then left, locking the door behind him. Isla immediately went to the windows, locked and probably alarmed. The door, solid wood, definitely locked from the outside. Her phone, they'd taken it in the car, along with her purse. She was trapped in the world's most comfortable prison cell. An hour passed. Then 2. Isla explored the library, finding books in multiple languages, first editions that made her teacher's heart weep, and a bar stocked with liquor that probably cost more per bottle than her monthly salary. She was examining what she suspected was an original Hemingway manuscript when the door finally opened. The man who entered made her previous captor look like a mall cop. He moved with the kind of authority that comes from never being questioned, dressed in a charcoal suit that fit like it had been sewn onto his body. His hair was dark with streaks of silver at the temples, his face all sharp angles and harder edges. He looked to be in his late 30s, with eyes the color of steel and just as warm. "Miss Lancaster," he said, his voice carrying an accent Isla couldn't quite place, something European refined. "I apologize for the dramatic extraction. I prefer civilized conversation, but your father has made that impossible." "I'm not Vivian Lancaster," Isla said. He smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. "Denial is expected. You'll move past it." "No, I mean it literally. Check your intelligence. I'm Isla Monroe. I teach English at a public school in the Bronx. Vivian is my friend, we came to the party together, but I am absolutely, definitely not her." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. He pulled out a phone, typed something, waited. His expression darkened with each passing second. "Show me your ID. You took my purse in the car." He snapped his fingers, and within seconds, one of his men appeared with Isla's purse. She dug out her driver's license and handed it over. The man studied it. Then he studied her. Then he said something in a language Isla didn't recognize, Italian, maybe, or Romanian, that sounded extremely profane. "Well," he said finally, "this is unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" Isla's voice rose. "I've been kidnapped, held hostage, and locked in a library for 2 hours, and you think this is unfortunate?" "For both of us, Miss Monroe." He pocketed her license. "My name is Konstantin Volkov, and you've just become a very complicated problem. Would you have stayed quiet about being the wrong girl, or told the truth immediately? Drop your answer in the comment and hit that subscribe button to see what happens next." The room they gave Isla was nicer than her entire apartment. King-size bed with sheets that probably had a thread count higher than her credit score. Ensuite bathroom with a tub deep enough to drown in. Walk-in closet already stocked with clothes in exactly her size, which should have been comforting but was actually deeply creepy. She tried the door. Locked, obviously. She tried the windows. Also locked, with the added bonus of being on the 3rd floor overlooking a courtyard where armed guards strolled like they were on a casual evening walk. She tried screaming. No one came. Finally, exhausted and terrified and still wearing her roommate's borrowed dress, Isla collapsed onto the bed and did what any rational person would do in this situation. She cried. Not delicate tears, either. Ugly, snotty sobbing that left her face blotchy and her eyes swollen. She cried for her stupidity in getting into that car, for her bad luck in looking enough like Vivian to fool kidnappers, for the fact that no one would even notice she was missing until Monday when she didn't show up to teach her first period class. Her students would assume she was sick. Her principal would be annoyed but not alarmed. Her roommate thought she was spending the weekend at Vivian's. And Vivian was probably already on her way to her bachelorette party in Miami, completely oblivious to the fact that her friend had been kidnapped in her place. Eventually, the tears stopped because even panic has its limits. Isla sat up, wiped her face with sheets that cost more than her monthly paycheck, and tried to think logically. Konstantin Volkov. The name sounded Russian, and the accent fit. She tried to remember if she'd ever heard it before, in the news maybe, or in one of those true crime podcasts she listened to while grading papers. Nothing. But his reaction to discovering her real identity had been telling. He hadn't seemed angry exactly. More, frustrated. Like she disrupted carefully laid plans through no fault of her own. A knock at the door made her jump. Miss Monroe. A woman's voice, accented but gentle. May I come in? Is it locked? Yes. Then I don't really have a choice, do I? The door opened. The woman who entered looked like she'd stepped out of a European fashion magazine, mid-50s, silver hair in an elegant chignon, wearing a dove gray dress that probably cost more than Isla's car. She carried a tray loaded with food that smelled heavenly. I am Irina, she said, setting the tray on the dresser. I manage Mr. Volkov's household. I thought you might be hungry. Isla's stomach betrayed her by growling loudly. She hadn't eaten since a sad desk salad at lunch, and fear had burned through those calories hours ago. Thank you, she said cautiously. Irina studied her with sharp eyes that missed nothing. You are not what we expected. I get that a lot lately. A small smile. Mr. Volkov would like you to join him for breakfast tomorrow morning. 8 o'clock. Someone will collect you. And if I refuse? Then you will eat alone in this room. Irina moved toward the door. The clothes in the closet are yours to use. If you need anything, press the button beside the bed. Someone will come. I need to leave. That, Irina said gently, is the one thing I cannot provide. She left. The lock clicked. Isla approached the food tray like it might explode. Roasted chicken, vegetables that looked like they'd been harvested by artisanal farmers, bread still warm from the oven. Her stomach growled again, overruling her brain's warnings about accepting food from kidnappers. She ate. God help her, she ate every bite, and it was the best meal she'd had in months. Afterward, she showered in the bathroom that was bigger than her bedroom at home, using products that smelled like luxury and felt like silk. She found pajamas in the closet, silk naturally, in a blue that matched her eyes. As she climbed into bed, Isla tried to make sense of her situation. Konstantin Volkov had kidnapped the wrong woman. That much was clear. The question was, what would he do about it? The logical choice was to release her. She was useless as leverage against Gregory Lancaster. But she'd seen too much, the estate, his face, his operation. She was a witness. Which meant the logical choice was actually to kill her. Isla pulled the silk sheets up to her chin and stared at the ceiling, wondering if she'd ever see Monday. Morning came too early, announced by a soft knock on the door. Isla had barely slept, drifting in and out of nightmares where she was back in that SUV, back on that terrace, back in every moment where she could have made a different choice. Miss Monroe. A man's voice this time. Mr. Volkov is expecting you. She found clothes laid out on a chair she didn't remember being there before. Designer jeans that fit perfectly, a cashmere sweater in forest green, ankle boots that were probably Italian leather. Everything in her size. Everything expensive. It felt like being dressed for her own funeral. The guard who escorted her downstairs was young, maybe mid-20s, with a kind of muscles that came from a gym membership and possibly steroids. He didn't speak, just led her through hallways decorated with art that belonged in museums. The breakfast room overlooked gardens that stretched as far as she could see. Konstantin sat at the head of a long table, reading something on a tablet, coffee steaming beside him. He looked up when she entered, and something flickered in his expression, surprise, maybe, or appreciation. Miss Monroe. Please sit. Isla sat as far from him as the table allowed. A staff member immediately appeared, pouring coffee and setting down a plate of fresh fruit and pastries. Did you sleep well? Konstantin asked, like this was a normal breakfast between normal people. Considering I've been kidnapped, surprisingly yes. Those sheets are amazing. What's the thread count? His lips twitched. I have no idea. Shame. I was thinking of leaving a Yelp review. 5 stars for accommodations, 0 stars for the involuntary imprisonment. You have a sharp tongue for someone in your position. My position being, probably going to die today? Yeah, sarcasm is my coping mechanism. That and inappropriate humor. Konstantin set down his tablet and studied her with those steel gray eyes. You're not what I expected, Miss Monroe. So everyone keeps telling me. What did you expect? Tears? Begging? A dramatic escape attempt involving bed sheets tied together. Yes to all 3, actually. He sipped his coffee. Most people in your situation would be catatonic with fear. Oh, I'm terrified, Isla assured him. I'm just really good at compartmentalizing. Right now, I'm putting all my panic in a mental box labeled Deal with Later, and focusing on this excellent coffee. Is it Jamaican Blue Mountain? Costa Rican? You know coffee. I'm a teacher. Coffee is basically a food group. She took another sip, closing her eyes. God, this is good. We have a machine in the teacher's lounge that produces something that's technically coffee but tastes like regret and broken dreams. Another almost smile. You're quite different from Vivian Lancaster. Well, I wasn't raised in a penthouse with a trust fund and a horse named Duchess. I was raised in Queens by a single mom who worked 2 jobs. We're different species. Tell me about yourself, Miss Monroe. Isla laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. Why? Planning to make small talk before you kill me? I haven't decided what to do with you yet. At least he was honest. Isla set down her coffee cup, her hands trembling slightly. What do you want to know? Everything. Start with why you were at that party. So she told him. About Vivian, about their unlikely friendship that had survived Vivian's ascension into Manhattan society and Isla's descent into adjunct poverty. About the borrowed dress and the champagne she couldn't afford and the uncomfortable truth that she'd gone to the party out of obligation, not friendship. Konstantin listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. You don't even like her, he observed when she finished. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. He leaned back in his chair. You speak about her the way one speaks about a chore, necessary but unpleasant. Isla wanted to argue, but he wasn't wrong. When had her friendship with Vivian become something she endured rather than enjoyed? Somewhere between Vivian's third nose job and her engagement to a man she'd known for 6 months? She's my friend, Isla said finally, weakly. Is she? Would she come for you if your positions were reversed? The question hit harder than it should have. Isla thought about Vivian's life, the charity galas and yacht parties and Instagram posts that got thousands of likes. Where did a missing friend rank in that hierarchy of importance? I don't know, she admitted. I do. Konstantin's voice was gentle, which was somehow worse than anger. I've had Vivian Lancaster under surveillance for 3 months. I know what she eats for breakfast, who she calls after midnight, how many times a week she goes to her Pilates class. I know everything about her, Miss Monroe. And I know she hasn't tried to contact you since the party. The words landed like blows. 24 hours had passed since Isla disappeared from that terrace. Had anyone even noticed? What do you want from her? Isla asked, desperate to change the subject. From her father? Konstantin's expression hardened. Gregory Lancaster has been laundering money for an organization called the Kozlov Bratva. They're human traffickers, Miss Monroe. They move women and children across borders like cargo. Last year alone, they processed over 300 people, most of them underage girls sold to the highest bidder. Isla felt sick. And Lancaster Holdings makes it all possible. Clean money, clean investments, clean conscience. Gregory Lancaster lives in his mansion and sends his daughter to charity galas while funding an empire built on suffering. So you're what? The good guy in this scenario. I'm the man who lost his sister to the Kozlov Bratva 12 years ago. Konstantin's voice was ice and iron. She was 16. They took her from Moscow, promised her a modeling career in New York. We found her body 3 months later in a warehouse in New Jersey. The grief in his eyes was real and raw, and Isla felt something shift in her chest, sympathy, maybe, or understanding. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Your sympathy doesn't bring her back. But destroying the people who enabled her death? That might help me sleep at night. He stood, his movements controlled and dangerous. I was going to use Vivian Lancaster to expose her father's crimes. Public pressure, media attention, a very ugly trial. But instead I have you. And what exactly are you going to do with me? Konstantin walked to the window, his back to her. That's the question I've been asking myself all night. You're a witness. You've seen this estate, my face, my operation. Every logical analysis says you're a liability I can't afford. So kill me. Isla was surprised by how steady her voice was. That's what you're building up to, right? The sad backstory, the explanation of why you're actually the hero. It's supposed to make me understand, maybe even forgive you. Well, I don't. You're a criminal who kidnapped the wrong woman, and now you're going to murder an innocent person to cover up your mistake. He turned, and the look on his face stopped her cold. If I wanted you dead, Miss Monroe, you'd already be dead. I don't need absolution or understanding. I need, he stopped, seemed to reconsider. I need to think. About whether to kill me? About what to do with someone who's completely upended my carefully laid plans. He moved toward the door, then paused. You'll stay here while I decide. Irina will see to your needs. Don't try to escape. This estate is 30 miles from the nearest town, surrounded by armed guards, and any attempt to leave will end badly. For me or for them? He almost smiled. I'm beginning to think both. Then he was gone, leaving Isla alone with her cooling coffee and the growing certainty that she'd somehow made the worst situation even more complicated. Okay, be honest. Is Konstantin a villain or a broken hero trying to do the right thing? Comment if you think he's the villain or if he's misunderstood. Don't forget to like if you're hooked on this story. The library became Isla's prison and sanctuary. She spent the next 2 days there, surrounded by books worth more than most people's homes, trying not to think about her situation by losing herself in first editions and rare manuscripts. Irina brought meals, each one a culinary masterpiece that made Isla hate herself a little for enjoying them. Between breakfast and dinner, Isla was left alone with her thoughts, which was both a blessing and a curse. She tried to make sense of Konstantin Volkov. Criminal, clearly. Dangerous, absolutely. But also educated. The library collection suggested someone who actually read, not just displayed books for show. And his motivation, revenge for his sister, was almost sympathetic if you ignored the whole kidnapping thing. On the third day, he came to the library. Isla looked up from a leather-bound copy of Anna Karenina to find him watching her from the doorway. He traded his suit for more casual clothes, dark jeans, a black sweater that probably cost more than her rent. It made him look younger, less like a crime lord and more like a dangerously attractive man who happened to keep people prisoner in his mansion. Russian literature, he observed. In the original Russian. I minored in comparative literature. Learned Russian to read Dostoevsky without translation. Isla closed the book carefully. Have you come to tell me my fate, or are you just checking to make sure I haven't tunneled out with a spoon? I've made a decision. Her heart stopped. This was it. The moment where he either released her or killed her or, I want to offer you a proposition. That's not what I expected. Konstantin entered the library, moving to the bar and pouring 2 glasses of something amber and expensive. He offered her one. Isla took it, more out of shock than thirst. Vivian Lancaster, he said, is currently in Miami for her bachelorette party. She returns in 4 days. When she does, I'm going to take her, the right target this time. Congratulations. The problem, he continued as if she hadn't spoken, is that taking her now will be difficult. Her father has increased security since your extraction. He suspects something. Taking her will require planning, time, resources. And you're telling me this why? Because you're going to help me. Isla laughed, the sound sharp and slightly hysterical. You kidnapped me by mistake, and now you want me to help you kidnap my friend? That's insane. Is she your friend? Konstantin sat across from her, his eyes intense. You've been here 3 days. Has she called? Texted? Noticed you're missing. The words hit home because Isla had been wondering the same thing. Her phone, which Konstantin's people had taken but not destroyed, sat on the desk between them. She'd watched it during meals, hoping for a notification, a missed call, anything. Nothing. She thinks I went home, Isla said weakly. Does she? Or does she simply not think about you at all? He leaned forward. I've shown you what her father does, Miss Monroe. The suffering he enables. If you help me expose him, you'll be stopping human traffickers. You'll be saving lives. By betraying someone I've known for 10 years. By stopping someone whose lifestyle is built on exploitation and death. Konstantin's voice was steel-wrapped in velvet. I've had people investigate Vivian while you've been here. Do you know where her engagement ring came from? A diamond mine in Sierra Leone that uses child labor. Her designer handbags? Made in factories where workers are locked in during shifts. She lives in luxury built on suffering, and you're protecting her out of some misplaced sense of loyalty. Isla wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. She thought about Vivian's Instagram, the constant parade of expensive things, exotic vacations, casual waste. She'd always dismissed it as typical rich person behavior, annoying but harmless. But what if it wasn't harmless? What exactly are you asking me to do? She heard herself say. Konstantin set down his glass. Vivian trusts you. When she returns, you'll contact her, tell her you need to meet. She'll come because she's worried about her reputation, about anyone finding out her friend disappeared from her party. You'll meet her somewhere neutral, somewhere public. My people will take her from there. And then I use her to get to her father. I expose his money laundering, his connections to the Bratva, everything. He goes to prison, his empire crumbles, and hundreds of trafficking victims get justice. And Vivian? She'll be returned to her family once her father cooperates. Unharmed. Isla stood, pacing the length of the library. Her mind raced through possibilities, consequences, moral implications. If I say no, then you stay here until I find another way. Which I will, eventually. It will just take longer, be messier, potentially more dangerous for everyone involved. So I'm still a prisoner either way. Yes, Konstantin said, and at least he had the decency not to lie. But one option makes you complicit in stopping human traffickers. The other makes you an obstacle I have to work around. Isla stopped at the window overlooking the gardens. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Somewhere out there, Vivian was drinking overpriced cocktails and posting selfies, oblivious to the chaos she'd left in her wake. I need guarantees, Isla said finally, still looking out the window. Vivian doesn't get hurt. At all. Not a scratch. Agreed. And when this is over, I go free. Completely. No looking over my shoulder, no wondering if you're going to silence the witness. You have my word. The word of a criminal. She turned to face him. Forgive me if that doesn't inspire confidence. Konstantin stood, moving to stand beside her at the window. This close, she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle, like cedar and smoke. My sister's name was Katya, he said quietly. She wanted to be a doctor. She was brilliant, top of her class, full of dreams about saving lives. The men who took her destroyed all of that. They destroyed my family. My mother died of grief 3 years later. My father drank himself to death a year after that. I've spent the last decade building an empire just so I could burn down theirs. He turned to face her, and the pain in his eyes was so raw it hurt to look at. I give you my word, Miss Monroe, that Vivian Lancaster will not be harmed. And when this is over, you'll walk away free. I may be a criminal, but I keep my promises. It's the only honor I have left. Isla searched his face, looking for deception, finding only exhaustion and determination and something that might have been hope. If I do this, she said slowly, I want updates. I want to know she's safe, that you're keeping your word. And if anything goes wrong, if she gets hurt, then you can shoot me yourself. I'll even provide the gun. Despite everything, Isla almost smiled. You're insane. Probably. Do we have a deal? She thought about Vivian, about their friendship that had somehow become one-sided without her noticing. About the diamonds mined by children and the handbags made by prisoners. About a 16-year-old girl named Katya who died in a warehouse while her family fell apart. She thought about the kind of person she wanted to be versus the kind of person she was being. One more condition, Isla said. Name it. I want to help beyond just the betrayal. I want to be part of taking down the operation. Not physically, I'm not stupid. But research, planning, whatever you need. If I'm going to ruin my friendship and possibly my life, I want it to actually mean something. Konstantin studied her for a long moment, something like respect flickering in his expression. You're either very brave or very foolish. I teach freshman English in the Bronx. I'm definitely both. He extended his hand. Then we have a deal, Miss Monroe. Isla looked at his hand, elegant, scarred across the knuckles, belonging to a man who'd built an empire on revenge. She shook it. Call me Isla, she said. If we're partners in crime, we should probably use first names. Konstantin. Though most people call me Kos. Konstantin sounds better. More villainous. I'm not the villain in this story, Isla. No, she agreed, releasing his hand. But you're not the hero either. His smile was sharp as broken glass. Neither are you. I think that's what makes this interesting. Over the next 24 hours, Isla learned more about organized crime than she'd ever wanted to know. Konstantin, she couldn't bring herself to think of him as Kos, it felt too intimate, showed her the evidence he'd compiled against Gregory Lancaster. It was damning. Bank transfers, property records, emails that should have been deleted but weren't. Lancaster Holdings had been washing money for the Kozlov Bratva for at least 7 years, taking a 15% cut in exchange for making billions in illegal profits look legitimate. How did you get all this? Isla asked, scrolling through documents on a laptop Konstantin had provided. I have people inside Lancaster's organization. A secretary who's tired of being harassed, an accountant who grew a conscience, a security guard who needed money for his daughter's cancer treatment. Everyone has a price, Isla. The trick is finding what they're willing to sell. They worked in the library, papers and laptops spread across every surface. Irina brought food at regular intervals, always something delicious, always perfectly timed. The staff moved through the house like ghosts, present but invisible, never acknowledging the strange situation of their employer working closely with his prisoner. This entry here, Isla said, pointing to a line in a spreadsheet. The timing matches with a raid in Romania. 36 women rescued from a warehouse. That was Kozlov's operation. The women were supposed to be moved to Berlin, but someone tipped off Interpol. Konstantin leaned over her shoulder to look, close enough that she could feel his breath on her neck. We need to connect that money directly to the raid. If we can prove Lancaster's payments funded that specific operation, we create a narrative for the prosecution. One specific crime with specific victims rather than abstract numbers. Isla pulled up another file. What about the women who were rescued? Did any of them testify? Most were deported back to their home countries. Interpol isn't known for their victim-centered approach. His jaw tightened. But there was one, a girl from Ukraine named Oksana. She stayed in Germany, received asylum. I've been trying to find her. Let me help. Isla's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up databases and search engines. This, at least, was familiar territory, research, cross-referencing, finding needles in digital haystacks. If she got asylum, there'll be records. What's her last name? They worked until midnight, until Isla's eyes burned and her back ached from hunching over the laptop. Konstantin called in more of his people, men and women in expensive suits who spoke multiple languages and treated their boss with a respect that bordered on fear. Isla watched him coordinate his empire with the same efficiency she used to organize her lesson plans, just with higher stakes and more international wire transfers. "You're good at this," she observed during a break, when it was just the two of them again. "At what?" "Crime." He poured coffee from a carafe that had appeared while she wasn't looking. "At leadership. At making people want to help you." She accepted the coffee gratefully. "You could have been anything, CEO, politician, probably a Bond villain if you tried harder." "I'm Russian. We're all Bond villains at heart." But he smiled when he said it, and for a moment he looked young and almost carefree. "I studied business at Cambridge, actually. My father wanted me to take over his import company. Legitimate work, boring but stable." "What changed?" "Katya." The name hung in the air like smoke. "After she died, I couldn't go back to that life. I couldn't pretend the world was safe and orderly when I knew what monsters were out there, profiting from suffering. So I became a monster who hunts monsters." "That's very dramatic." "I'm Russian," he repeated. "We invented dramatic." Isla laughed, and realized with a start that she was actually enjoying herself. How twisted was that? She'd been kidnapped, was planning to betray her best friend, and was collaborating with a criminal whose business card probably said, morally ambiguous vigilante. "And yet, what will you do?" she asked. "After. When Lancaster's in prison, and the Bratvas exposed and you've gotten your revenge." Konstantin was quiet for a long time, staring into his coffee like it held answers. "I haven't thought about after in 12 years. Revenge has been my entire purpose. Without it..." He trailed off. "You become just another rich guy with too much money and not enough purpose?" "Something like that." "Well," Isla said, standing and stretching muscles that had cramped from sitting too long, "you could always go legitimate. Use your evil empire for good. Become a philanthropist. Buy a yacht and pretend to care about saving the whales." "Is that what Vivian would do?" The name hit like cold water, reminding Isla of the reality of what she'd agreed to. In 3 days, Vivian would return from Miami. In 3 days, Isla would betray her. "I should sleep," she said abruptly. "Big day of moral compromise tomorrow." She headed for the door, but Konstantin's voice stopped her. "Isla." She turned. He'd stood as well, his expression serious. "If you want out, tell me now. I won't hold you to this agreement if you've changed your mind. And I'll just stay locked in this mansion forever?" "You'll stay until I find another way. But you'll stay comfortable, safe, and without the weight of betrayal on your conscience." It was tempting. God, it was tempting. To go back to being just a victim, to let someone else carry the moral burden. But Isla thought about the spreadsheets upstairs, about the numbers that represented real people, real women and children sold like products. She thought about Katya, 16 and full of dreams, destroyed by men who saw her as merchandise. "I haven't changed my mind," she said. "I'm just scared of what this makes me." "Human," Konstantin said quietly. "It makes you human. And that's more than most people in this game can claim." Isla nodded and left before she could second-guess herself again. In her luxurious prison cell, she lay awake until dawn, wondering when she'd stop thinking of herself as purely a victim and started thinking of herself as something far more complicated. A collaborator. A whistleblower. A traitor. Or maybe, just maybe, someone who was finally doing something that mattered. The big question: would you betray your best friend to stop human trafficking, or stay loyal no matter what? Team betrayal or team loyalty? Drop your answer below and subscribe. The call came on Thursday afternoon. Isla stared at her phone, which Konstantin had returned with a warning about calling the police, as Vivian's name flashed on the screen. Her finger hovered over the answer button, trembling slightly. "You don't have to do this," Konstantin said from across the library where they'd set up their command center. "Yes, I do." Isla answered. "Hey Viv." "Oh my God, Isla. I've been trying to reach you for days." Vivian's voice was pitched high with what might have been concern but sounded more like inconvenience. "Where have you been? You just disappeared from my engagement party. People were asking about you." "People were asking about me?" Isla tried to keep the bitterness from her voice. "That's surprising. I didn't think anyone noticed I existed." "Don't be dramatic. I noticed you were gone, eventually. I assumed you'd gotten tired and went home without saying goodbye, which was kind of rude by the way." Isla looked at Konstantin, who was watching her with those steel-gray eyes. He nodded slightly. "Actually, something came up," Isla said, hating how easily the lie came. "Family emergency. I had to leave quickly." "Oh no. Is everything okay?" "It's complicated. Listen, can we meet? I need to talk to you about something important." "Important like?" Vivian's tone shifted, became guarded. "Isla, if this is about money." "It's not about money." The words came out sharper than intended. It's about your engagement. About your father. A pause. What about my father? Not over the phone. Can you meet me Saturday? There's this new cafe in Brooklyn. Brooklyn. Vivian said it like Isla had suggested meeting in a war zone. Can't we just meet at my place? Please, Viv. It's important. Another pause. Isla could practically hear Vivian calculating how much effort this would require, whether it was worth her time, if she could delegate this task to an assistant. Fine, Vivian said finally. But it better actually be important. Text me the address. She hung up without saying goodbye. Isla set down the phone, her hands shaking. She didn't even ask what the emergency was. Didn't ask if I was okay, if I needed anything. Just complained that I left her party without permission. Are you surprised? Konstantin asked gently. No. That was the worst part. I'm really not. Saturday morning arrived too quickly and not quickly enough. Isla dressed carefully in clothes from the mysteriously well-stocked closet. Jeans, a simple sweater, boots that looked casual but probably cost a month's rent. She looked like herself but elevated, like someone who'd accidentally wandered into money. The cafe is wired, Konstantin explained as his tech specialist. A woman named Sonia with purple hair and enough piercings to set off metal detectors, attached a nearly invisible microphone to Isla's collar. We'll hear everything, but we won't move until you give the signal. Which is? You mention your mother's name. When we hear that, we know you're clear and Vivian is alone. Isla's mother had died when she was 12. Saying her name would hurt, but that seemed fitting somehow. Everything about this hurt. What if Vivian brings security? Isla asked. She won't. I've been monitoring her communications. She thinks this is just a dramatic friend needing attention. She's not taking it seriously enough to bring guards. Konstantin studied her face. You can still back out. Stop asking me that. I'll stop when I believe you're sure. Isla met his eyes. I'm terrified, conflicted, and pretty sure I'm going to hell for this. But I'm sure. These past few days working with you, seeing what her father does, I can't unknow that. I can't pretend it doesn't matter. Something shifted in Konstantin's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. You're stronger than you think. I'm a coward who's using moral outrage to justify betrayal. You're a person trying to do the right thing in an impossible situation. That's not cowardice, Isla. That's courage. The car ride to Brooklyn felt like traveling to her own execution. Isla sat in the back of a black sedan driven by one of Konstantin's men, watching the city pass by the window. Manhattan gave way to Brooklyn, luxury to authenticity, her old life approaching with every mile. The cafe was in Park Slope, deliberately chosen for being public, safe, and far enough from Vivian's usual haunts that she wouldn't run into anyone from her social circle. Isla arrived early, ordered coffee she couldn't taste, and waited. Vivian was 20 minutes late. She arrived in a car that probably cost more than Isla's annual salary, wearing athleisure that looked runway-ready and sunglasses that hid half her face. She slid into the seat across from Isla with the air of someone doing a friend a tremendous favor. This better be quick, she said, not removing her sunglasses. I have Pilates at 11. It's 9:30. It's in Tribeca. Traffic's a nightmare. Isla took a breath, trying to remember her lines, her purpose, the reason she was doing this. I need to talk to you about your father. What about him? Vivian pulled out her phone, already distracted. About his business. Lancaster Holdings. That got her attention. Vivian lowered her phone, pushed her sunglasses up into her hair. What about it? He's been laundering money for human traffickers. The words hung in the air like a grenade with a pin pulled. Vivian stared at her, expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and then anger. Are you insane? She hissed, leaning forward. Do you have any idea how serious that accusation is? I have evidence. Bank records, transactions, connections to an organization called the Kozlov Bratva. Your father has been cleaning their money for years, Viv. The diamonds in your engagement ring, the designer clothes you wear, it's all paid for with money from trafficking victims. Vivian's face went pale, then red. Who put you up to this? Is this some kind of scam? Did someone hire you to blackmail my family? No one hired me. I'm trying to help you. Help me. Vivian's laugh was sharp and brittle. By accusing my father of being a criminal? By trying to destroy my family with lies. They're not lies. Isla pulled out her phone, showing her the documents Konstantin had let her photograph. Look. These are real. Your father is involved in. I don't care. Vivian stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I don't know what game you're playing, Isla, but it's sick. My father is a respected businessman. He's donated millions to charity. He's friends with senators. He's also enabling human trafficking. You're jealous. Vivian's voice rose, drawing stares from other patrons. You've always been jealous of my life, my money, my success. This is just you trying to tear me down because you can't stand that I have everything you don't. The words hit like slaps. Isla stood too, angry now, done with playing nice. Your success is built on suffering. Every expensive handbag, every vacation, every piece of jewelry, it's all paid for with money made from selling people. Children, Viv. Your father helps traffic children. Shut up. Vivian grabbed her purse, her hands shaking. We're done. Don't call me, don't text me, don't ever contact me again. And if you spread these lies about my family, our lawyers will bury you. You'll lose everything. I don't have anything to lose. Unlike you. Vivian's face twisted with something ugly, anger and fear and denial all at once. You're pathetic. You've always been pathetic. I kept you around because I felt sorry for you, the scholarship student who had to work for everything while I had it given to me. But you know what? At least I didn't turn into a bitter, jealous, lying. Her name was Katya. The words came out before Isla could stop them, her mother's name offered up like a sacrifice. She was 16. The Bratva took her, trafficked her, killed her. And your father made money from it. Vivian stared at her for one more second, then turned and walked out. Isla sank back into her chair, shaking. Around her, the cafe had gone quiet, everyone pretending not to have witnessed the scene. Her coffee was cold. Her hands were trembling. And somewhere outside, Konstantin's people were moving into position. 3 minutes later, her phone buzzed. We have her. Clean extraction. You did well. Isla stared at the message, then at the cold coffee, then at the door Vivian had walked through. She just betrayed her best friend. She just helped kidnap someone. She just crossed a line she could never uncross. And the worst part? She didn't regret it. Back at the estate, Isla went straight to her room and threw up. She knelt on the marble floor of her luxurious bathroom, emptying her stomach while her conscience tried to do the same. When there was nothing left, she sat back against the wall and cried, not the delicate tears from her first night here, but silent wrenching sobs that left her hollow. A knock at the door. Isla. Konstantin. Of course. Go away. I'm coming in. She didn't have the energy to argue. The door opened, and Konstantin entered, looking far too composed for someone who just orchestrated a kidnapping. He saw her on the bathroom floor and without a word, sat down beside her. They sat in silence for a long moment. She's in the West Wing, he said finally. Comfortable room, similar to yours. Irina is with her, explaining the situation. I'm sure that's going well. About as expected. She's demanding her lawyer, her father, and your head on a platter. He paused. She called you pathetic. You were listening. Of course I was listening. And for what it's worth, you're the least pathetic person I've met in years. Isla turned to look at him, this man who'd kidnapped her, enlisted her, and somehow become something like an ally. I just destroyed the oldest friendship I have. You just helped stop human traffickers. Both things can be true. They can. Konstantin shifted, his shoulder touching hers. Isla, what Vivian said to you was cruel but honest. I have been jealous of her. Not of the money exactly, but of how easy everything is for her. How she floats through life without consequences, while I scramble for every opportunity. Isla wiped her eyes. Maybe she was right. Maybe I did this out of jealousy. Do you believe that? She thought about the spreadsheets, about Katya, about the women and children sold like products. No. But it would be simpler if I did. Simplicity is overrated. Konstantin stood, offering her his hand. Come. There's something I want to show you. He led her to his office, a room she hadn't seen before, all dark wood and leather furniture and windows overlooking the estate. On his desk sat a laptop showing a video feed. What am I looking at? Isla asked. Oksana Pavlenko, the girl from the Romanian raid. Konstantin clicked play. The video showed a young woman, maybe early 20s, sitting in what looked like a modest apartment. She was pretty in a fragile way, with blonde hair and eyes that had seen too much. My name is Oksana, she said in accented English. 3 years ago, I was taken from my home in Ukraine. I was promised work as a waitress in Germany. Instead, I was locked in a warehouse with 30 other women and sold. Isla's throat tightened. We were moved 6 times in 3 months, Oksana continued. Different cities, different clients. We were beaten if we cried, starved if we didn't cooperate. 3 girls died. 1 was 14 years old. The video showed photos, a warehouse, police reports, the faces of other survivors. I was rescued in Romania. The police found us because someone reported suspicious activity. I learned later that the operation was funded by money from America, washed through legitimate businesses to look clean. Oksana looked directly at the camera. The men who took us are monsters. But the men who funded them, who made it possible, who turned their blood money into clean profits, they are worse. Because they pretend to be respectable. The video ended. Isla couldn't speak. I found her last week, Konstantin said quietly. She agreed to testify if we can guarantee her safety. With Vivian as leverage and Oksana's testimony, we can connect every piece of evidence directly to Gregory Lancaster. We can put him away for decades. And save how many others? Hundreds. Maybe thousands. He turned to face her. What you did today, betraying your friend, crossing that line, it matters. Not because Vivian deserves punishment, but because the system that enriched her family deserves to burn. Isla looked at the frozen frame of Oksana's face, at the strength and pain in those eyes. I need to apologize to her, she said. To Vivian? To both of them. But I meant Oksana. For living in the same city as her traffickers and never knowing, never caring, never doing anything. You're doing something now. Only because I got kidnapped by mistake. The best things in life often start with mistakes. Konstantin's voice was gentle. I was supposed to take Vivian. Instead, I got you. And you've been more valuable, more brave, and more vital to this operation than she ever could have been. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Understanding, respect, recognition. Maybe something more dangerous. Is this Stockholm Syndrome? Isla asked, trying for humor and landing somewhere near honesty. If it is, I'm suffering from it too. Before she could process what that meant, alarms blared through the estate. Konstantin's expression shifted instantly from vulnerable to dangerous. He pulled a gun from a desk drawer, because of course he had a gun in his desk drawer, and moved to the window. What is it? Isla asked, fear flooding her veins. Someone's breached the perimeter. He was already moving toward the door. Stay here. Lock yourself in. Don't open for anyone but me or Irina. Konstantin. But he was gone, running toward whatever danger had arrived. Isla stood alone in his office, listening to shouting in multiple languages, the sound of running feet, what might have been gunshots in the distance, and realized with terrible clarity that the complicated situation she'd been navigating had just become infinitely more complicated. Vivian just called Isla pathetic and said she kept her around out of pity. Was she right, or was that just her talking? Comment if Vivian was speaking facts, or if that was cruel. Don't forget to like this video if you can't wait to see what happens. The gunshots were definitely real. Isla crouched behind Konstantin's desk, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. More shouts in Russian, running footsteps in the hallway outside, and then an explosion that shook the entire building. The door burst open. Isla screamed, scrambling backward, but it was Irina, her elegant composure replaced by something fierce and focused. With me. Now. No room for argument. Isla followed her through corridors she'd never seen, downstairs that led to what could only be a panic room, reinforced walls, multiple monitors showing camera feeds, enough supplies for a siege. Vivian was already there, mascara streaked, designer athleisure rumpled, looking more human than Isla had seen her in years. What the hell is happening? Vivian demanded when she saw Isla. Your father is what's happening, Irina said grimly, working controls that locked the panic room behind them. He sent the Kozlov Bratva to retrieve you. Stupid, desperate man. On the monitors, Isla could see chaos unfolding. Men in tactical gear swarming the grounds, exchanging fire with Konstantin's guards. It looked like a war zone transplanted onto a country estate. Where's Konstantin? Isla asked. Fighting. Irina pulled up another feed showing the mansion's front entrance. There he was, taking cover behind a marble column, returning fire with the kind of precision that suggested he'd done this before. Often. This is insane, Vivian said, her voice rising toward hysteria. People are shooting at each other. Over me. Not over you, Isla said, unable to stop herself. Over what your father's done. The trafficking, the money laundering, all of it. You keep saying that like it's real. It is real, Viv. Isla turned from the monitors to face her former friend. Your father has been washing money for human traffickers for years. The evidence is overwhelming. Konstantin was going to use you to expose him, to bring down the entire operation. Konstantin, the man who kidnapped me? You're on a first-name basis with my kidnapper. He kidnapped me first. By mistake. He thought I was you. Vivian stared at her. What? So Isla told her everything. The terrace, the car, the week in luxury captivity, the choice she'd made to help bring down Gregory Lancaster. She left nothing out, not even her own moral struggles, her jealousy, her complicity. When she finished, Vivian was silent for a long moment. You betrayed me, she said finally, her voice small and lost. Yes. To help a criminal bring down my father. To help stop human trafficking. By ruining my life. Your life was already ruined, Viv. It was just expensive enough that you couldn't see the cracks. On the monitors, the firefight was intensifying. Isla watched Konstantin move with deadly grace, coordinating his people with hand signals, taking down attackers with shots that looked impossible. He's going to get himself killed, she said quietly. Would you care if he did? Vivian asked, something sharp in her tone. Your kidnapper who you're apparently in love with now? I'm not, Isla stopped. Was she? Could you fall for someone who'd held you prisoner? Who'd asked you to betray your best friend? Who'd shown you evidence of horrors and asked you to choose sides? You are, Vivian said, watching her face. Oh my God, you're actually in love with him. This is the most Stockholm Syndrome thing I've ever seen. Or maybe, Isla said slowly, I finally met someone who treats me like an equal instead of a charity case. Someone who trusted me with important work instead of just tolerating my presence. The words hit home. Vivian flinched, looked away. I never treated you like a charity case, she said, but it sounded weak even to her. You kept me around because I made you feel generous. Because next to me, the scholarship student, the teacher, the struggling friend, you looked better. More gracious. More aware of how the other half lives. That's not fair. Isn't it? Isla moved closer to the monitors, watching Konstantin direct his people to flank the attackers. When's the last time you asked about my life? My students? My work? When did you last visit my apartment or meet me somewhere I suggested instead of making me come to your world? Vivian opened her mouth, closed it. I'm busy. So am I. But I always made time for you. Another explosion, closer this time. The panic room shuddered. They've breached the main house, Irina said calmly, like she was commenting on the weather. She pulled a handgun from somewhere in her elegant dress. If they reach this room, I will protect you both. But it won't be pleasant. This can't be happening, Vivian said, her voice rising. This isn't real. This is. Your father's legacy, Isla interrupted. This is what happens when you build an empire on suffering. Eventually, the suffering comes home. On the screen, Konstantin took a bullet to the shoulder. Isla gasped, watching him stumble, go down behind cover. Her heart stopped. Then he was up again, left arm hanging useless but right hand still firing, still coordinating, still fighting. He needs help, Isla said. He needs a hospital, Irina corrected. But he won't retreat while attackers remain. Then we end this. Isla turned to Vivian. Call your father. What? Call him. Tell him you're safe. Tell him to call off his attack dogs before everyone here dies. Why would I do that? These are the people who kidnapped me. Because if you don't, Konstantin will die. His people will die. And probably us too when the Bratva breaches this panic room. Isla grabbed Vivian's shoulders. I know you hate me right now. I know I betrayed you. But those men out there aren't here to rescue you. They're here to silence everyone who knows about your father's crimes. Including you. Vivian's eyes widened. He wouldn't. He absolutely would. You're a liability now. You know too much. The truth of it settled over Vivian's face like a veil. Her perfect life, her perfect father, all of it crumbling in real time. What do I say? She whispered. The call lasted 3 minutes. Vivian, using Irina's secure phone, told her father she was unharmed. That she'd learned about his business dealings. That the evidence against him was overwhelming and already in the hands of federal prosecutors. A lie, but a convincing one. Call them off, Daddy, she said, her voice breaking. Please. People are dying. Gregory Lancaster's response was everything Isla expected. Denial, then anger, then desperate bargaining. But finally, grudging compliance. The men attacking the estate began to retreat, falling back in coordinated movements that spoke to professional training. Within 10 minutes, the shooting stopped. Konstantin appeared on the monitors, wounded but alive, directing his people to secure the perimeter. His shoulder was bleeding badly, his suit ruined, but he was standing. He'll live, Irina said, already moving toward the panic room door. Wait here while I verify the threat is eliminated. She left, locking them in. Isla and Vivian stood on opposite sides of the room, the monitors showing the aftermath of the attack, bodies on the ground, damaged architecture, the price of secrets kept too long. What happens now? Vivian asked quietly. Now Konstantin takes the evidence to the FBI. Your father goes to prison. The Bratva operation gets exposed. And you? Isla trailed off. And I what? Go back to my life pretending none of this happened. I don't think that's possible anymore. Vivian sank into a chair, looking smaller than Isla had ever seen her. Everything I have came from his money. The apartment, the clothes, the engagement ring Mason gave me. He bought it with money from Daddy's company. It's all dirty. Yes. And you've known this for how long? A week. And you didn't tell me. You used me instead. Isla wanted to argue, to defend her choices, but Vivian wasn't wrong. I did. And I'd do it again, because what your father's doing is worse than our friendship. But that doesn't mean I don't regret hurting you. Do you? Vivian looked up, her eyes red. Or do you just regret feeling guilty about it? The question cut deep because Isla didn't have a good answer. The panic room door opened. Konstantin stood there, his left arm in an improvised sling, blood seeping through his shirt, looking like he'd walked through a war and won. His eyes found Isla first, relief flashing across his face. Then he focused on Vivian. Miss Lancaster. I apologize for the drama. Your father's men have been discouraged from further attempts. Discouraged, Vivian repeated. Is that what we're calling murder now? We're calling it self-defense. They came to my home. They shot first. He looked exhausted, like the adrenaline was wearing off and pain taking its place. But they've retreated. You're safe. Am I? Vivian stood, her composure returning even as her world fell apart. My father just tried to have me killed. My best friend betrayed me. I'm being held prisoner by organized criminals. None of that feels particularly safe. Your father will be arrested by Monday morning, Konstantin said. Federal prosecutors have been building a case for months. Tonight's attack gives them everything they need to move immediately. As for your safety, you'll remain here until the arrests are made, then you'll be free to go. Free to go where? To testify against my own father. If you choose. The prosecutors would appreciate your cooperation, but it's not required. The evidence speaks for itself. Vivian laughed, the sound broken. At least you're honest about using me. I've been honest about everything, Konstantin said quietly. I took you because your father enables human traffickers. I would have released you once he was exposed. Nothing more, nothing less. And her? Vivian pointed at Isla. What was she? Part of the plan or a happy accident? Konstantin's eyes met Isla's, and something passed between them that made her breath catch. She was supposed to be collateral damage, he said. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong face. But she became the most important part of this entire operation. Not because of what she could give me, but because of who she chose to be. How touching, Vivian said bitterly. The criminal and the traitor, bonded through shared guilt. Viv, Isla started. Don't. Just don't. Vivian moved toward the door. I want to go to my room. Alone. I can't look at either of you right now. She left, shoulders straight, head high, every inch the Lancaster princess even as her empire crumbled. Konstantin and Isla stood in the panic room, surrounded by monitors showing the damage, the cost, the consequences of choices made. You're hurt, Isla said, moving toward him. I've had worse. That's not reassuring. She helped him to a chair, carefully avoiding his injured shoulder. Up close, she could see how much blood he'd lost, how pale he was under his tan. You need a doctor. I have one on staff. He's been called. Konstantin caught her hand with his good one. Are you all right? When the shooting started. I was terrified. I thought you were going to die. Would you have cared? It was the same question Vivian had asked, but coming from Konstantin it felt different. More important. More dangerous. Yes, Isla said simply. I would have cared very much. Even though I kidnapped you? Used you? Made you betray your friend. You didn't make me do anything. I chose. Every step, every decision I chose. She sat beside him, their hands still linked. And I think I'm choosing again right now. Choosing what? To care about a morally ambiguous criminal who quotes Russian literature and fights human traffickers and looks at me like I'm the first real thing he's seen in years. Konstantin's smile was soft and sad. Isla. I know it's crazy. I know it's probably trauma or Stockholm syndrome or some psychological defense mechanism. But I also know that this past week has been the most alive I've felt in years. Fighting for something that matters, working with someone who treats me as an equal, making choices that actually impact the world instead of just grading papers and wondering if any of it makes a difference. It all makes a difference, Konstantin said. Your students, your work, your normal life, it all matters. Maybe. But this matters more. She squeezed his hand. What happens now? After the arrests, after the trials, after all of this is over? I don't know. I've spent 12 years building toward this moment. I never thought about what comes after revenge. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe revenge isn't supposed to have an after. Then what am I supposed to do? Go back to being normal? Or find a new purpose? Use your resources for something other than revenge. Actually help people instead of just punishing the guilty. Konstantin studied her face like he was memorizing it. You're suggesting I reform. Become one of the good guys. I'm suggesting you already are one. You just don't realize it yet. And what about you? Will you go back to teaching after this? Pretend none of it happened. Isla thought about her classroom, her students, her small apartment with its water-stained ceiling and temperamental heat. That life felt like a foreign country now, somewhere she'd visited once but could never quite return to. I don't know if I can, she admitted. I've seen too much. Know too much. I've crossed lines that teachers aren't supposed to cross. Then don't go back. Konstantin's voice was intense, urgent. Stay. Help me figure out this, after you're talking about. Use your mind, your morality, your impossible optimism to build something better. You're asking me to stay? Voluntarily this time. I'm asking you to consider that sometimes the wrong turn leads exactly where you're meant to be. The words echoed what he'd said that first day, when she'd been his prisoner and he'd been her captor. But now they felt different, less like manipulation and more like possibility. "I'll stay," Isla said. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "First, Vivian goes free as promised. No charges, no revenge, no holding grudges. She's been through enough." "Agreed." "Second, you see that doctor immediately before you bleed out and ruin this moment." A smile. "Agreed." "Third." Isla paused, gathering courage. "Third, we do this right. No more lies, no more manipulation, no more using people. If we're going to build something, we build it on truth. Even uncomfortable truth. Especially uncomfortable truth." Konstantin lifted his good hand to her face, cupping her cheek gently. "Then here's an uncomfortable truth. I think I fell for you the moment you quoted Tolstoy in the original Russian and looked at me like I was a person instead of a monster. Everything after that was just me trying to justify keeping you close." "That's not uncomfortable," Isla said, leaning into his touch. "That's terrifying." "Is it? To know that someone sees you, really sees you, and wants you anyway. When that someone is a criminal who literally kidnapped me." "Yes. Very terrifying." "I can live with terrifying." "Good," Isla said and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking whatever fragile thing existed between them. Then Konstantin's good arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, and Isla forgot to be afraid. She forgot about the moral complications, the Stockholm Syndrome concerns, the fact that this man had held her prisoner for a week. She forgot everything except the way he kissed her like she was both precious and powerful, fragile and fierce. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Konstantin rested his forehead against hers. "Wrong girl," he murmured. "Right outcome," Isla finished. 6 months later. The courtroom was packed for Gregory Lancaster's sentencing. Isla sat in the gallery, Konstantin beside her in an impeccably tailored suit that hid the scar on his shoulder. Across the aisle, Vivian sat with her mother. They'd reconciled somewhat, though their relationship would never be what it was. Oksana Pavlenko testified. Her words were powerful, devastating, impossible to ignore. She described her captivity, her suffering, and the long road to recovery. She looked directly at Gregory Lancaster when she finished. "You did not hold the gun," she said. "But you loaded it. You pulled the trigger. You profited from my pain. I hope you remember my face every day you spend in prison." The judge sentenced him to 40 years. The Kozlov-Bratva operation was dismantled, 18 arrests across 4 countries, over 200 victims rescued. Konstantin's evidence had been crucial, though his own criminal activities were carefully omitted from official reports. Prosecutorial discretion, the lead FBI agent had explained when Isla asked why Konstantin wasn't being charged. "He helped us more than we could have helped ourselves. Sometimes justice means knowing when to look away." Outside the courthouse, Konstantin and Isla walked through a gauntlet of reporters. "Mr. Volkov, is it true you coordinated with the FBI? Miss Monroe, how does it feel knowing your testimony helped convict Gregory Lancaster?" They didn't answer, just kept walking to the car where Irina waited. Back at the estate, which Isla now thought of as home, however strange that felt, they found Vivian waiting in the library. "I heard about the sentencing," she said without preamble. 40 years. "Yes," Isla said carefully. They'd seen each other only twice since that night, once for Isla to testify in front of a grand jury, once for an awkward coffee that had ended with Vivian crying and Isla not knowing how to help. "I'm not here to forgive you," Vivian said. "I don't know if I ever will. But I wanted to say." She paused, searching for words. "Thank you. For stopping him. For caring more about what was right than about our friendship. Viv. I'm leaving New York. Going to California, maybe Europe. Somewhere I can figure out who I am when I'm not Gregory Lancaster's daughter." She looked at Konstantin. "I still think what you did was wrong. Kidnapping me, using Isla, all of it. But I understand why you did it." "Understanding isn't forgiveness," Konstantin said. "No. But it's a start." She turned to Isla. "I hope you're happy. With him, with your choices, with whatever this new life is. You deserve happiness, even if you found it in the strangest possible way." "What about you?" Isla asked. "Will you be happy?" "I don't know. But I'm going to find out." Vivian smiled, sad but genuine. "Goodbye, Isla." "Goodbye, Viv." They watched her leave, blonde hair gleaming, designer heels clicking, still every inch a Lancaster even as she walked away from everything that name meant. "Will she be all right?" Konstantin asked. "Eventually. She's stronger than she knows." "So are you." Isla turned to face him, this man who'd kidnapped her by mistake and become something like her purpose. "What happens now? You've had your revenge. The bad guys are in prison. Justice has been served. Now we figure out what comes after revenge." Konstantin pulled her close, his arms around her waist. "You mentioned using my resources for good. I've been thinking about that. Dangerous. You thinking. There are other girls like Katya. Other victims who need help, who need someone to fight for them. He looked at her seriously. I have money, connections, skills. You have morality, compassion, a teacher's instinct to help. Together. We could actually make a difference, Isla finished. A legal difference this time. Mostly legal. Legalish. She laughed. You're incorrigible. And you're in love with me anyway. Unfortunately, yes. Konstantin kissed her, and Isla thought about the strange path that had led her here, from a rooftop terrace to a black SUV to a mansion library to a courthouse to this moment. Wrong turns and right outcomes, mistakes that led to purpose. I love you too, Konstantin said against her lips. My wrong girl who became exactly right. Isla smiled. Wrong girl, right outcome. That should be our organization's name. Absolutely not. Wrong Girl Foundation? I'm vetoing all of these. You can't veto. I'm co-founder. Equal partner. Remember? We're doing this on truth now. Fine. But we're also doing this on reasonable naming conventions. They argued about it all evening, interrupted only by kisses and plans and the strange impossible joy of building something good from the wreckage of something terrible. Outside, the sun set over the estate, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. And inside, two people who'd been brought together by the worst kind of mistake began to build the best kind of future. Wrong girl. Right outcome. Perfect ending. Is this Stockholm syndrome or real love? Comment if you think they're truly in love, or if this is toxic and she needs therapy. Would you choose safety with a boring life, or danger with someone who truly sees you?
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.